The words hit me like a slap. "We don't want you on New Year's Eve," our son Michael said through the phone. Just like that. Cold and direct. I could hear laughter in the background. His friends, I assumed. My hand trembled as I set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. My name's Harold Winters. Most folks call me Hal. I'm 73 years old, retired high school math teacher from a small town outside Cincinnati. Been living in the same two-story colonial for 48 years. Me and my wife Margaret, Maggie to everyone who knows her, raised our two kids here. Michael's our youngest, just turned 40 last month. Our daughter Sarah lives across the country in Portland with her family. Life's been pretty quiet since I retired 12 years ago. I get up at 6:30 every morning, same as when I was teaching. Old habits die hard. Make my coffee, read the paper, work on my woodworking projects in the garage. Maggie's still active with her garden club and church committee. We have dinner together every night at 6. Sometimes we watch those crime shows she likes, or I read while she does her crosswords. We've had a good life. Not fancy, but good. I look at our refrigerator sometimes, covered with pictures of the kids growing up. Sarah in her ballet costume, gap-toothed and grinning. Michael in his baseball uniform, holding up a trophy. Family vacations where we'd pile into our old station wagon and drive to Lake Erie. We didn't have much money back then, but we made it work. I remember staying up late grading papers so I could make it to Michael's baseball games, taking on summer school classes to help pay for Sarah's college. Maggie working part-time at the library to make ends meet. We never complained. That's what parents do. The Christmas when Michael was 8, he wanted that new Nintendo system that every kid had. Cost nearly a week's salary for me. Maggie and I ate ramen noodles for lunch for a month to afford it. The look on his face Christmas morning, that made it all worthwhile. When Sarah needed braces, we postponed fixing the roof for another year. I patched the leaks myself with tar and prayers during rainstorms. All those sacrifices, those choices. We never regretted them. Not once. The kids grew up, moved out. Michael stayed local, got married to Vanessa, had 2 beautiful children, Emma and Tyler, 10 and 8. They live in one of those fancy new subdivisions with the big houses and perfect lawns. He's some kind of executive at a marketing firm. Makes more in a month than I did in a year of teaching. We still saw them regular enough. Sunday dinners once a month. Birthday celebrations. Major holidays. Always at their house, of course. Their dining room could fit 30 people. Our modest home felt cramped with just the 6 of us. But lately things had changed. The Sunday dinners became every other month. Then quarterly. Then when we can fit it in. Phone calls got shorter. Michael always busy with work. The grandkids' school activities took precedence over visits to Grandma and Grandpa. I understood. Life gets busy. Kids have their own lives. I never wanted to be one of those clingy parents who can't let go. So Maggie and I adjusted. We filled our days with our own routines, our own friends. We tried not to take it personally, until that invitation came 3 weeks ago. It was a fancy card, gold embossed with Michael and Vanessa's names at the top. Annual New Year's Eve Gala, it said. Black tie optional. An address for an expensive hotel downtown. RSVP required. Maggie was ecstatic. They finally invited us to one of their parties. I've heard about these from Vanessa's mother. All their friends attend. It's quite the event. I was less enthusiastic, dressing up in an uncomfortable suit, making small talk with strangers half my age. But I saw how happy it made Maggie, so I dug my old tuxedo out of the back of the closet, the one I'd worn to Sarah's wedding 12 years ago. It was a bit tight around the middle now, but nothing a good tailor couldn't fix. Maggie bought a new dress, navy blue with silver sequins. Spent more than she should have, but I didn't say anything. She got her hair done special at the salon. Even bought new shoes that pinched her feet but looked elegant. We'll finally get to be part of their world, she said, twirling in front of the mirror. I smiled and nodded, though something in my gut felt uneasy. Michael hadn't called us about the invitation. It just arrived in the mail, like we were any other acquaintance on their list. Maggie called Michael right away to RSVP, left a message. He didn't call back. She tried again 2 days later. Finally, he texted, "Got your message. We'll confirm details soon." That was it. No looking forward to seeing you or glad you can make it, just an acknowledgement. Days passed. Christmas came and went. We had the kids over for the traditional Christmas Eve dinner. They arrived late and left early. Michael checked his phone constantly. Vanessa made comments about our quaint decorations. The grandkids were glued to their tablets, barely looking up when we gave them their presents. Still, Maggie remained excited about New Year's Eve. She kept the invitation on the fridge, secured with a magnet shaped like a champagne bottle, a trinket from some long-ago celebration. Then, 3 days before the event, Michael finally called. I answered, expecting details about the party. Where to park, what time to arrive, whether we should bring anything. Instead, his voice came through cool and distant. Dad, about the New Year's Eve party. Yes, we're looking forward to it. Your mother's got a new dress and everything. A pause. I could hear him talking to someone in the background. Muffled voices. Then, look, there's been a misunderstanding. That invitation, it wasn't supposed to go to you guys. What? Vanessa's assistant made a mistake with the guest list. You know how these things happen. I didn't know. I'd never had an assistant to blame for my mistakes, so we're not invited. I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. Another pause. Longer this time. It's a different crowd, Dad. Clients, business associates. You and Mom wouldn't enjoy it. We might surprise you, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Then came the words that knocked the wind out of me. We don't want you on New Year's Eve. Dad, it would be awkward for everyone. We don't want you, it might not be your scene, or maybe next time. Just, we don't want you. I heard Vanessa's voice in the background, saying something about fixing the situation, like we were a problem to be solved. I see, I said, because what else could I say? You understand, right? It's not personal. It's business, but it felt personal. It felt like a door slamming shut. Sure, Michael. I understand. Great. Tell Mom I'm sorry for the mix-up. We'll do dinner soon, okay? Gotta run, and he was gone. I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, staring at the invitation on the fridge. All Maggie's excitement, all her preparations, her new dress, her hair appointment, for nothing. How was I going to tell her? I heard her humming in the bedroom, probably trying on her dress again. My heart felt like lead in my chest. That's when something shifted inside me. A lifetime of swallowing disappointments, of making excuses for my son's behavior, of pretending it didn't hurt when he cancelled plans or forgot birthdays. It all boiled over. To hell with this, I muttered. I picked up the phone again and called our closest friends, Bob and Linda Miller. We'd been friends for over 40 years, taught at the same school, raised our kids together. Bob, it's Hal. What are you and Linda doing for New Year's Eve? Nothing special. Probably watch the ball drop on TV. Why? How about you come over here instead? Maggie and I are hosting a dinner party. The words came out before I'd fully formed the thought. But once I said them, they felt right. Really? That sounds great. What can we bring? Just yourselves. And maybe a bottle of champagne. I made 3 more calls. The Johnsons, who lived down the street. The Parkers from church. And Martha Wilson, a widow from Maggie's garden club. Everyone said yes. When Maggie came into the kitchen, I was writing a shopping list. Who were you talking to? She asked. I took a deep breath. Michael called. There's been a change of plans for New Year's Eve. Her face fell. They cancelled the party? No, I said. But we're not going. I told her everything. Michael's words. The mix-up with the invitation, all of it. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't finished. So I've invited our real friends over instead. Bob and Linda, the Johnsons, the Parkers, and Martha. We're having our own New Year's Eve dinner. You can still wear your new dress. We'll still celebrate, just with people who actually want us around. For a moment, Maggie said nothing. Then she walked over and wrapped her arms around me. You're a good man, Harold Winters, she whispered against my chest. The next 2 days were a flurry of preparation. We cleaned the house from top to bottom, planned a menu, prime rib on sale at the grocery store, twice-baked potatoes, green bean casserole, and Maggie's famous chocolate cake for dessert. I dug out our good china, the set we'd received as a wedding gift and barely used since, polished the silver, found candles for the dining room table. Maggie arranged a centerpiece with evergreens from our yard and ornaments left over from Christmas. She hummed as she worked, and if I occasionally caught her wiping away a tear, I pretended not to notice. New Year's Eve arrived cold but clear. The house smelled of roasting meat and baking cake. Maggie looked stunning in her new dress, her silver hair swept up in an elegant style. I wore my old tuxedo, freshly pressed. Our friends arrived at 7, bearing bottles of wine and small gifts. Bob brought his record player, and soon Sinatra was crooning through our living room. The conversation flowed easily, decades of shared history, making silences comfortable and laughter genuine. We were midway through dinner when the doorbell rang. "Are we expecting anyone else?" Maggie asked. I shook my head and went to answer it. There on our porch, shivering in the cold, stood Michael. His eyes were red, his tie askew. He smelled faintly of alcohol. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking. "Can I come in?" I hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. He stumbled past me into the warmth of the house. "Your party end early?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. He shook his head. "I didn't go." "What?" "I had a fight with Vanessa. About you and Mom. About everything." I led him into the kitchen, away from our guests in the dining room. He leaned against the counter, looking more like the uncertain teenager he'd once been than the confident executive he'd become. "What happened?" I asked. "After I called you, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd said. We don't want you." "Who says that to their parents?" His voice caught. Vanessa didn't understand why I was upset. She said I was being dramatic, that it was just a party. He wiped at his eyes. "But it's not just a party, is it? It's everything. The way we've been treating you and Mom, the way I've become. This person I don't even recognize anymore." I stood there, arms crossed, not ready to offer comfort yet. "I drove to the hotel," he continued. "Got all the way to the valet stand, and I couldn't do it. Couldn't go inside and pretend everything was fine. So I drove here instead." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so goddamn sorry." I stared at my son standing there in my kitchen, tears streaming down his face. Part of me wanted to pull him into a hug, the same way I'd done when he fell off his bike at 7 or didn't make the baseball team at 14. But another part, a harder part that had formed over years of disappointment, held me back. "Sorry doesn't fix everything, Michael," I said finally. "I know." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I don't expect it to." From the dining room came the sounds of our party, laughter, glasses clinking, Bob telling one of his teaching stories that always ended with the same punchline. "Our real friends. People who actually wanted us around. Your mother and I have guests," I said. Michael nodded, taking in my tuxedo, the good dishes visible through the doorway, the candles flickering on the table. "You made your own plans," he said softly. "Had to. We were uninvited to yours." He flinched at that. "Good. Some things should sting. Can I talk to Mom?" I hesitated, then called over my shoulder. "Maggie, could you come in here a minute?" She appeared in the doorway, radiant in her new dress. Her smile faltered when she saw Michael. "Oh," she said. Just that one word, heavy with a mother's particular kind of heartbreak. Michael took a step toward her, then stopped, uncertain. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Maggie glanced at me, then back at our son. "We have guests, Michael." "I know. I needed to see you." An awkward silence fell. Through the dining room window, I could see more cars pulling up outside. Neighbors, the Wilsons from 2 doors down, the Thompsons from church. Word of our impromptu party had spread. "You should probably get back to Vanessa," Maggie said finally. Michael shook his head. "We're taking some time. She's at the hotel party. I'm not going back there tonight." Something flickered across Maggie's face. Maternal concern, warring with the hurt that was still fresh. "Well, you can't stay here," I said. "We're full up." "I know. I'm going to a hotel." He took a deep breath. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry and I'll call you tomorrow." "If that's okay." Maggie nodded stiffly. Bob appeared in the doorway behind her. "Everything all right in here?" "Fine, Bob," I said. Michael was just leaving. Bob looked from Michael to me, understanding dawning on his face. Well, we're about to pour another round. Linda's telling everyone about that time at the faculty picnic when the principal fell into the lake. "We'll be right there," Maggie said. Michael backed toward the door. "Happy New Year," he said quietly. Neither of us responded. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Maggie and I stood in the kitchen, not looking at each other. "He seemed upset," she said finally. "He should be." She nodded slowly. "Should we have let him stay?" I shook my head. "Not tonight. Tonight's for us." She reached for my hand, squeezed it once, and we rejoined our guests. The party continued, warm and lively. We ate Maggie's chocolate cake. Bob put on Glenn Miller records. Martha Wilson taught everyone a dance move from her youth that had us all laughing until our sides hurt. But something had shifted. Michael's brief appearance had left a crack in the evening, not enough to ruin it, but enough that I kept finding my thoughts drifting to him alone in some hotel room while we celebrated. At midnight, we all counted down together, glasses raised. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Cheers erupted. Couples kissed. Bob popped another bottle of champagne. Through the window, I noticed a car parked across the street. A familiar sedan, engine off, headlights dark. Michael's car. I said nothing to Maggie. The party wound down around 1:30. Our friends helped clean up, despite our protests. By 2, everyone had left, with warm hugs and promises to do this again next year. That was wonderful, Maggie said, as she closed the door behind the Millers. Our last departing guests. It was, I agreed, loosening my bow tie. She kicked off her pinching shoes with a sigh of relief. I'm exhausted, but in the best way. I glanced out the window. Michael's car was still there. I'm going to put these dishes in to soak, I said. You go on up to bed. She kissed me on the cheek. Don't stay up too late. You know how you get when you don't sleep enough. I won't. After she went upstairs, I stood at the window watching that car. The temperature had dropped into the low 20s. It had to be cold out there. Part of me wanted to go out, tap on his window, invite him in from the cold. But another part, that same hard part, kept me rooted in place. Let him be uncomfortable for once. Let him feel what it's like to be on the outside looking in. I turned away from the window and began gathering glasses. The next morning I woke early as usual. The house was quiet. Maggie still asleep upstairs. I put on my robe and went downstairs to make coffee. The car was gone. I felt a pang of something. Regret? Relief? I couldn't tell. The doorbell rang at 10:30, just as Maggie and I were finishing a late breakfast of leftover party food. I'll get it, I said. It was Michael, looking worse than he had the night before. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes. Did you sleep in your car? I asked, knowing the answer. He nodded. Can I come in, please? I stepped aside. He walked into our living room, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. Maybe he was. It had been months since he'd actually been inside our house, always insisting we come to them instead. Mom, he said when he saw Maggie. You look terrible, she said, but there was concern in her voice now. Have you eaten? He shook his head. Sit down. I'll make you some eggs. While Maggie busied herself in the kitchen, Michael sat awkwardly on our couch. I took the armchair across from him. Why did you sleep in your car? I asked. He shrugged. Didn't want to go to a hotel. Wanted to be near. Near what? Home, he said quietly. That word hung in the air between us. Home. This modest house he'd grown up in. The place he'd been so eager to leave behind for bigger, better things. This hasn't felt like your home in a long time, Michael. He nodded. I know. You made that choice. Another nod. What's really going on? I asked. Is this about the party or is something else happening? He looked up surprised. What do you mean? I mean, you and Vanessa have been pulling away for years now. An uninvited party doesn't explain this. I gestured to his disheveled appearance, his obvious distress. He was quiet for a long moment. Vanessa's been talking about moving to Chicago. Her firm has an office there. Better opportunities, she says, and you don't want to go. I don't know what I want anymore. His voice cracked. Everything's just gotten so complicated. Complicated how? He rubbed his face. There are some issues. Financial stuff. Vanessa doesn't know yet. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. What kind of financial stuff? I made some investments. They didn't pan out. He looked away. We're not in a good position right now. And there it was. The real reason for the sudden remorse, the tears, the sleeping in the car outside our house. Not genuine regret, not true understanding of how he'd hurt us. Just money problems. How bad is it? I asked, my voice flat. Pretty bad. We might lose the house. Maggie came in with a plate of eggs and toast. Here you go, dear. Eat something. Michael took the plate but didn't eat. Thanks, Mom. I watched him, this grown man who'd once been my little boy, who'd stood in this very room on Christmas mornings, wide-eyed with wonder at the gifts we'd scraped and saved to provide, who'd received everything we could possibly give him, and still somehow ended up here, breaking his mother's heart, sleeping in his car, drowning in financial troubles he was too proud to admit until now. That's why you came by last night, isn't it? I said. Not because you felt bad about uninviting us, because you need money. Maggie's sharp intake of breath told me she hadn't considered this possibility. No, Michael protested. That's not. I mean, yes, we're having problems, but that's not why I came. Isn't it? Because it seems awfully convenient that after months of barely speaking to us, after specifically telling us we weren't wanted at your fancy party, suddenly you're having a crisis of conscience, right when you're also having financial difficulties. Dad, that's not fair, isn't it? I stood up, anger rising like a tide. Tell me something, Michael. If your investments had panned out, if you weren't facing losing your house, would you have shown up at our door last night crying about how sorry you are? Or would you have gone to that hotel party with Vanessa and not given us a second thought? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His face said it all. That's what I thought, I said. Harold, Maggie said softly. Maybe we should... No, Maggie, no more making excuses for him. I turned back to Michael. How much do you need? He stared at his untouched eggs. $75,000. I nearly choked. $75,000. What the hell kind of investments were these? It's complicated. There were some margin calls, and then I held up my hand. I don't need the details. I just want to be clear about what's happening here. You treated your mother and me like we were an embarrassment, like we weren't good enough for your fancy friends. You broke her heart, made her cry, and now you want us to bail you out to the tune of $75,000? I don't expect you to just give it to me, he said quickly. It would be a loan. I'd pay it back as soon as what? As soon as your next big investment pays off? As soon as you get that promotion? As soon as you decide we're worth your time again? That's not fair, Dad. Life isn't fair, Michael. Your mother and I taught you that, or at least we tried to. Maggie put her hand on my arm. Harold, please, let's just listen to what he has to say. I shook my head. I've heard enough. Michael set his plate down carefully on the coffee table. I understand if you don't want to help. I messed up, I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you only realized you messed up when you needed something from us. He flinched. What does Vanessa have to say about all this? Maggie asked. She doesn't know yet. About how bad it is, I mean. You haven't told your wife you're about to lose your house? I asked incredulously. He shook his head. I was trying to fix it first. I thought I could turn things around. By hitting up your parents for $75,000? That was your fix? I didn't know what else to do. The desperation in his voice gave me pause. For just a moment, I saw not the entitled adult who'd hurt us so casually, but the little boy who'd come to me with his problems, trusting that Dad could make it all better. But this wasn't a skinned knee or a broken toy. This was a grown man who'd made poor choices and now wanted us to sacrifice our retirement security to save him from the consequences. I can't help you, Michael, I said finally. Not with that kind of money. The hope drained from his face. I understand. No, I don't think you do, I continued. Your mother and I have a fixed income now. We've worked our entire lives to have a secure retirement. That money you're asking for, that's our safety net. That's what ensures we don't become a burden to you or your sister in our old age. I know, but no buts. We're not in a position to risk that kind of money. And frankly, even if we were, I'm not sure we should. What's that supposed to mean? It means that bailing you out now might feel like helping, but it wouldn't be. Not really. It would just be enabling you to avoid facing the real problems. The real problems? You mean me losing my house, my credit, everything I've worked for? I shook my head. I mean the problems that led you here in the first place. The need to impress people who don't care about you. The constant reaching for more, bigger, better, without appreciating what you already have. The willingness to step on people who love you to climb a little higher. His face flushed red. That's not fair, isn't it? You told us, your own parents, that we weren't wanted at your New Year's Eve party because we'd be awkward, because we didn't fit with your image. And now you want us to drain our savings to help maintain that image? He had no answer for that. So what am I supposed to do? He asked finally, his voice small. You face the consequences of your choices, I said. You tell your wife the truth. You downsize if you have to. You rebuild from where you are, not from where you wish you were. It'll ruin everything, he whispered. No, I said. It'll change everything. That's not the same thing. Maggie, who had been quiet through most of this exchange, cleared her throat. Michael, your father is right about the money. We can't give you $75,000. Relief flooded through me. I'd been afraid she might cave, might suggest we tap into our savings or take out a home equity loan to help him. But, she continued, we can help in other ways. I turned to her, surprised. If you and Vanessa need a place to stay while you figure things out, you could come here. The guest room is small, but it's yours if you need it. Michael looked up, clearly not having expected this offer. Maggie, I began, but she held up her hand. He's still our son, Harold, even when he disappoints us. The simple truth of that statement hit me hard. Yes, he was still our son. The same boy whose baseball games I'd never missed. The same teenager I'd taught to drive in the high school parking lot. The same young man I'd helped move into his first apartment, assembling IKEA furniture late into the night. But he was also the adult who'd caused his mother to cry on New Year's Eve, who'd made us feel like we weren't good enough for his world, who'd only remembered our value when he needed something from us. Thank you, Mom, Michael said. I don't know if it will come to that, but thank you. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for nearly 50 years. Her compassion both frustrated and humbled me. Always had. There's one condition, I said, turning back to Michael. What's that? Honesty. Complete honesty from now on. With us, with Vanessa, with yourself. No more pretending to be something you're not. No more living beyond your means to impress people who don't care about you. He nodded slowly. I can try. Not good enough. You don't try to be honest. You just are. He took a deep breath. Okay. I will be. Starting now, I said. Call Vanessa, tell her everything. Right now from this room with us here. Panic flashed across his face. Dad, I can't. You can, and you will, if you want our help in any form. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. His hand shook slightly as he dialed. Vanessa, it's me. We need to talk. I haven't been honest with you about something important. As he began to explain their financial situation to his wife, I took Maggie's hand and led her into the kitchen to give him some privacy. Are you sure about this? I asked quietly. She squeezed my hand. No, but I'm sure he's our son and he needs help. From the living room came the sound of Michael's voice, strained but steady as he laid out the truth for his wife. Each word seemed to cost him, but he was saying them anyway. Maybe that was a start. I'm still angry, I admitted to Maggie. I know, me too. It's not going to be easy having him here, if it comes to that. She nodded. Nothing worthwhile ever is. In the living room, Michael's voice broke as he said, I'm so sorry, Vanessa. I've made a terrible mess of everything. Listening to my son finally tell the truth, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly. That would take more time, but perhaps the beginning of a path that might eventually lead there. Maybe that was enough for now. Michael was still on the phone with Vanessa when Maggie and I returned to the living room. His shoulders were hunched forward, his voice tight with strain. From what I could hear, Vanessa wasn't taking the news well. "I know," he was saying. "I know it was stupid. I'm so sorry." He glanced up at us, then quickly looked away. "No, I'm at my parents' house," he continued. "Yes, they know everything now. No, they can't. I understand. I'll be home soon." He hung up, staring at the phone in his hands, like it was something foreign. "How'd she take it?" I asked, though the answer was written all over his face. "About as well as you'd expect," he said. "She's upset." Maggie sat down next to him on the couch. "It's a lot to process, dear." He nodded. "She wants me to come home. Says we need to talk face to face." "That seems reasonable," I said. Michael stood up, gathering himself. "I should go. Thank you for listening at least." I walked him to the door, watching him struggle to find the right words. "Dad, I held up my hand. "Just go talk to your wife. Figure out your next steps. Our offer stands." He nodded again, then walked out to his car. I watched him drive away, feeling a complicated mix of emotions: anger, disappointment, concern. But also, somewhere underneath it all, a flicker of something like hope. He'd told the truth, finally. It was a start. Maggie came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we raised a child who turned into someone I barely recognize. He's still in there somewhere. The boy we raised." I sighed. "Maybe, but he's got a lot to figure out. Do you think they'll take us up on the guest room?" "I hope not, but if they do." I turned to face her. "We need to be clear about boundaries. No bailing them out financially. No enabling their old lifestyle. If they stay here, it's a fresh start, not a temporary fix until they can go back to living beyond their means." Maggie nodded. "I agree." We spent the day putting away the last of the New Year's party decorations, settling back into our routine. But there was a tension in the air, a sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop. It took 3 days. Michael called on January 4th. "Dad," his voice sounded hollow, defeated. "Is that offer still open?" "The guest room?" "Yes," a long pause. "Vanessa, she's going to her sister's for a while. Says she needs space to think." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Yeah," he cleared his throat. "The bank is foreclosing on the house. We can't make the payments anymore." I closed my eyes, feeling no satisfaction in being right. "When do you need to be out?" "End of the month." "And the kids?" "They're with Vanessa at her sister's for now." I could hear what he wasn't saying. Vanessa was reconsidering more than just their financial situation. She was reconsidering everything. "The guest room is yours for as long as you need it," I said. "But we need to be clear about some things." "I know, Dad, no handouts. I need to figure this out on my own." "That's right," another pause. "I'll be over tomorrow with some of my things. If that's okay, we'll be here." After I hung up, I found Maggie in the garden pruning her roses. "Michael's coming tomorrow." Vanessa left with the kids. She straightened up, pushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Oh, Harold, those poor children." "I know." I sank onto the bench beside her flower beds. "I keep thinking about where we went wrong." "We didn't go wrong," she said firmly. "Michael made his own choices as an adult. But somewhere along the line, he got the idea that appearances matter more than substance. That impressing people was more important than being honest. Where did that come from?" She sat beside me, her gardening gloves leaving smudges of soil on the bench. "I don't know, but I do know we have a chance now to help him find his way back. If he wants to find his way back. He's our son, Harold. He'll always be our son." The next day, Michael arrived with 3 suitcases and a haunted look in his eyes. I helped him carry his things to the guest room, noticing how little he'd brought. No designer clothes, no fancy watches, just the basics, selling the rest, he explained when I commented on it. "Trying to raise some cash to cover the worst of the debts. Smart move," I said. He looked around the guest room, the twin bed with its faded quilt, the dresser I'd built decades ago, the small desk under the window where Sarah used to do her homework. "It's been a long time since I slept in this house." he said quietly. Your home is always your home, Maggie said from the doorway. No matter how far you roam. He gave her a sad smile. I'm not sure I have a home anymore, Mom. Those first few days were awkward. Michael spent most of his time on the phone with creditors, lawyers, financial advisors. I overheard enough to understand just how deep a hole he dug for himself. It wasn't just the house. There were credit cards, personal loans, investments gone bad. At dinner, he'd pick at his food, lost in thought. Maggie tried to draw him out, but he'd retreat to his room early, citing more calls to make. One evening, about a week after he moved in, I passed by the guest room and heard something I hadn't heard in years. Michael crying. Not the theatrical tears from New Year's Eve, but real gut-wrenching sobs. I hesitated at the door, torn between respecting his privacy and offering comfort. In the end, I knocked softly. Michael, you okay in there? The crying stopped abruptly. I'm fine, Dad. I pushed the door open anyway. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, a photo in his hands. Emma and Tyler on a beach somewhere, building a sandcastle. You miss them? I said. Not a question. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Vanessa says I can see them this weekend. If I come to her sister's. That's good, is it? He looked up at me, his face raw with emotion. I've lost everything, Dad. My house, my wife, my kids, my career. You haven't lost your kids, I said firmly. And your career isn't over unless you decide it is. Who's going to hire someone who's bankrupt? Who couldn't even manage his own finances? I sat down beside him on the bed. Someone who sees your potential beyond your mistakes. He shook his head. I really messed up, Dad. Not just the money stuff, everything. The way I treated you and Mom. The way I let myself become someone I don't even recognize anymore. When did it start? I asked. This transformation. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo in his hands. I don't know exactly. Little by little, I guess. Getting the job at the firm. Meeting Vanessa. Her family had money, real money. The kind where vacations in Europe are just normal. Where you don't check price tags. And you wanted that life. I wanted to belong in that world. To not feel like I was always catching up. He set the photo down carefully. I started spending more to fit in. Then more to keep up appearances. Then more because it was expected. Before I knew it, we were leveraged to the hilt, but everyone thought we were successful. And that felt important. More important than being honest with yourself. With your family? He winced. When you put it like that, I'm not judging, Michael. I'm trying to understand. I know. He took a deep breath. The investments were supposed to fix everything. A guy at work had a sure thing. Said we could triple our money in 6 months. I put in everything we had, borrowed more, and it fell through completely. The company went bankrupt. Total loss. He laughed bitterly. The irony is, if I'd just been honest with Vanessa from the beginning, we might have been able to scale back, adjust our lifestyle. But I kept trying to fix it without admitting there was a problem. Like father, like son, I said. He looked at me, surprised. What do you mean? I've never told you this, but when you were about 4, I made a bad investment too. Lost almost all our savings. You did? I never knew. Why would you? You were a child. But I was ashamed, embarrassed. I didn't want to tell your mother. Thought I could fix it without her knowing what happened. She found out anyway. Bank statement came in the mail. She opened it before I could hide it. I smiled at the memory. She wasn't even angry, at least not about the money. She was hurt that I didn't trust her enough to tell her the truth. What did you do? We worked through it together. Cut back, took on extra jobs. It was hard, but we did it as a team. I looked him in the eye. That's the difference, Michael. Not the mistake itself, but how you handle it. Whether you face it alone or together, he nodded slowly. I don't think Vanessa's interested in facing it together. She made that pretty clear. Give her time. It's a lot to process. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of all those years of misunderstanding between us suddenly lighter somehow. I need to make things right, he said finally. With you and Mom, with Vanessa and the kids, with myself. One day at a time, I said. And you start by being honest about everything. The weekend visit with his kids was rough. He came back quieter than before, but there was a new determination in his eyes. He started looking for work. Not at fancy marketing firms, but anywhere that would hire him. He found a position at a local print shop, less than a third of what he used to make, but it was something. Maggie worried he was taking too big a step down, but I understood. He needed to start somewhere to rebuild from the ground up. Weeks turned into months. Winter thawed into spring. Michael worked long hours at the print shop, saved every penny, met with a financial counselor who helped him create a debt repayment plan. He saw the kids every weekend, sometimes taking them to the park, sometimes bringing them back to our house. Emma and Tyler seemed to enjoy being with their grandfather and grandmother again. They were confused about why Daddy lived with us now, why they couldn't go to their big house anymore, but kids are resilient. They adapted. Vanessa was another story. She remained cool, distant. She and Michael had long, tense conversations on the porch when she dropped the kids off. I tried not to eavesdrop, but sometimes I couldn't help it. I just need more time, she'd say. I'm still processing everything. I understand, Michael would reply. I'm not pushing. I just want you to see I'm changing. One evening in late April, I was working in the garage on a birdhouse, my retirement hobby, when Michael came in. Need help? He asked. I looked up, surprised. Michael had never shown any interest in woodworking before. Sure, you can hold this piece while I nail it. He took the small wooden panel, positioning it just so. Mom says dinner's in 30 minutes. I nodded, focusing on getting the nails straight. We worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Dad, he said finally, I've been thinking about New Year's Eve a lot lately. I set down the hammer. What about it? About what you said. That we treated you and Mom like you weren't good enough for our world. He met my gaze directly. I'm ashamed of that. More than anything else, I'm ashamed of making you feel that way. We all make mistakes, son. No, this wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal. Of everything you and Mom taught me about what matters in life, I picked up the hammer again, needing something to do with my hands. Why do you think it happened? He considered this. I think I got caught up in chasing something that didn't really exist. This perfect life that would somehow make me feel, I don't know, important, successful, when all along the things that actually matter were right here. And what are those things? I asked, genuinely curious about his answer. Family, honesty, hard work. Being true to yourself, not some image you think others want to see. He smiled ruefully. All the stuff you and Mom tried to teach me that I was too busy to hear. Well, I said, sounds like you're hearing it now. He nodded. The hard way. But yeah, I resumed my hammering, but something had shifted between us. Some barrier that had been there for years had finally fallen away. That summer, we had another New Year's Eve party. Not on New Year's Eve, obviously. It was July, but we called it our do-over celebration. It was Maggie's idea. Everyone deserves a fresh start, she said. Besides, half the year's gone already. Might as well reset the clock. We invited all the same people who'd come to our original party. The Millers, the Johnsons, the Parkers, Martha Wilson. But this time Michael was there too, and Emma and Tyler. And somewhat to my surprise, Vanessa. She'd started coming around more often, having dinner with us occasionally, watching Michael with new eyes as he steadily rebuilt his life. They weren't back together, not officially, but they were talking, really talking, maybe for the first time in their marriage. We set up tables in the backyard, strung lights through the trees. Bob brought his record player again, and Sinatra crooned as the summer evening settled around us. At one point, Michael clinked his glass with a spoon. Everyone fell quiet. I want to propose a toast, he said, looking around at the gathered faces. To new beginnings, to second chances, and most of all, to my parents, who taught me what real success looks like. Across the yard, Vanessa caught my eye and smiled slightly. Not a promise, but a possibility. Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, Michael pulled me aside. Dad, I've been saving up. I think I can afford a small apartment now. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom, but it would be mine. Paid for, honestly. I felt a mix of pride and, surprisingly, a touch of sadness. I'd gotten used to having him around again. That's great news, son. I'll still come by all the time, he assured me, reading my expression. Sunday dinners for sure. And I'd like to keep learning woodworking if that's okay. My garage is always open to you. He hugged me then, a real hug, like when he was a boy. Thank you. For everything. That's what fathers do, I said simply. As the last guests left, Maggie and I sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the summer darkness. We did all right, didn't we? She asked, leaning her head against my shoulder. I looked across the yard where Michael was helping Tyler catch fireflies in a jar. Vanessa watching them with a soft expression I hadn't seen in years. Yeah, I said. I think we did. The thing about family is that it can break your heart in ways nothing else can. But it can also heal you in ways nothing else can. Sometimes the breaking and the healing are part of the same process, like setting a bone so it can grow stronger. That New Year's Eve when Michael said they didn't want us, it felt like the end of something. But looking back now, I can see it was really the beginning. The beginning of honesty, the beginning of growth, the beginning of finding our way back to what matters. We don't always get to choose what happens to us in life, but we do get to choose how we respond. Whether we let disappointment harden us or humble us. Whether we let pride drive us apart or let love bring us together. I'm 74 years old now. I've learned a few things along the way, and maybe the most important is this. It's never too late for a new beginning. Never too late to say I'm sorry. Never too late to open the door to someone who's been standing outside in the cold. If you've enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt tales like this one. How would you rate this story on a scale from 0 to 10? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to tell us where you're listening from.